Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO at recruiting and consulting firm Riderflex. If you think today's tip or guest interview can help someone you know, please share this with them. And if you enjoy listening to our show, please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button on the episodes. Finally, aside from our podcast, our day job here at Riderflex is to provide recruiting, staffing, and consulting services. You can visit riderflex.com to learn more about us and get the information on the services we provide. And now, a quick word from our sponsor and friends at Marketing 360.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
Stefany Nieto on the Riderflex podcast. Did I say that last name right?
Almost Nieto, but you're there.
Woo! It's Nieto. Wow. So I looked you up on YouTube and watched several interviews, and I was listening to how people were pronouncing it, and I was like, okay, well, I don't know. Nieto. So Nieto, what is that, by the way?
It means grandson in Spanish. I am Spanish.
Okay.
Yeah.
It means grandson.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. Well, all right. And that's all right. And so, are your family? Where are they from?
Well, I'm actually an immigrant to Canada. My entire family and myself grew up in Venezuela.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. You still have family back there? Do you get to go back and visit?
Well, I haven't been able to visit since I was 17. Wow. That's been a while. But yeah, my entire family's there. I have literally, I think 68 or 69 first cousins.
Really?
Yeah, I have a huge family and they're all back there. It's only me, my mom, and my brother here from my mom's side, at least.
You, your mom, and your brother. Okay. And when did you move here? When you were a little kid, or how old were you?
Yeah, so we actually did a bit of a hopscotch. We lived in Venezuela till I was 5, Trinidad and Tobago for a year, then the US for a year, and then we moved to Canada when I was around 10.
Okay. Why Canada? I mean, Venezuela is such a warm climate, and then you moved to Canada and freeze to death. Well, how'd you get to Canada?
Well, at first, to be frank, my parents were trying to figure out, what's the best area to raise our kids in, right? And so it was between US, Canada, and Australia. And why, I don't really know, but those were kind of their main areas.
Okay.
And living in the US, we I guess my parents had experienced a little bit of just blatant racism, and so they decided to go to Canada because well, they had that reputation of being really welcoming and kind, and so here I am.
I see. Okay, great. All right. And you speak fluent Spanish?
I do.
Okay. All right. So back to your childhood. I want to know a little bit more about personal before we get into business. So you said your mother, your brother, and yourself, but you said what? So dad, what's the story with dad? He didn't come?
Yeah. Well, no, he did. My dad passed away when I was in high school.
I see. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. What, sudden, or what happened? Do you mind sharing?
A bit sudden, I would say. Yeah, no, he passed away from an aneurysm, and those are always sudden. Anybody can have them, and they kind of just, it's like a ticking time bomb. But he had cancer beforehand. He had beat it, and then he had an aneurysm, so it was very sudden. In and out of hospitals for a while, but yeah, I was around 16 or 17.
Oh man, that is tough. The reason I ask about it, I mean, when stuff like that happens to you as a teenager, it really shapes you in so many ways, right? Woo, man, that made you tough. I mean, after that, when you're in your early 20s, nothing phased you probably, right? Whatever you dealt with, you're probably still in your 20s. I don't know how old you are, but nothing phases you after dealing with something like that. Wow, that was tough. Okay. Did your mom remarry or no?
No, but I'm I want her to get out there. I've been telling her this for years. Yeah, it's she's not there yet, I guess. But for me, yeah, I agree. I a lot of things don't phase me, but I think that's part of being an entrepreneur as well. When things get hard, it's kind of one of those, well, you know what? Nobody's died. So let's keep going.
Right? Isn't that so true? I always tell people, I'm like, look, here's the deal. When you get super stressed out, just imagine you're this little tiny speck on this blue ball floating around in this giant black space. Really, you're insignificant. So stop stressing out so much.
Yeah, I the first time I was actually in the Arctic and with my first company, and everything just went wrong. Just like everything that could go wrong went wrong, and I was in tears, freaking out. And I called one of my mentors at the time, and he was just like, "Look, like you're alive, nobody else has died, and the world is still spinning. You're gonna
Well,
figure this out."
exactly
So yeah,
right.
I totally agree.
Okay, so walk us into so you graduate high school in Canada. How do you decide where to go to school? Talk to us about your degree, your education really quick. Go for it.
Yeah, so I was deciding between different business schools, including, ones in the States. And I decided to go to the one I did, Ryerson here in Toronto, because one, it was closest to my family and I wasn't quite ready to be that far away.
Okay.
And two, I'm very community oriented. And I had looked at other commerce programs and they seemed very cutthroat. And that's just
Mm,
not necessarily who I am.
mm,
And so I went to my university. Before my even first day of class, I ended up joining this like social venture organization for students, mostly because I needed to make friends. Like I had moved out from my mom's place, and I was new to the city, so just a
mm.
way to make friends. But I ended up falling in love with it. In my first
Okay.
year, I traveled to Kenya. I did work in India, created my own startup in India,
Mm.
came back, did a project in the Arctic. Like I just kind of really dove into social venture space, and barely went to class, but still graduated, managed to do that, got a marketing degree, and mostly just use entrepreneurship instead.
Where did this social entrepreneurship bug come from? Like where do you think that came from?
Well, I think it was a big influence of the people I was around. Like all my friends were part of this organization, and
Okay.
everybody kind of just had this. Maybe it's the millennial thing of like wanting to save the world. I'm sure you've heard,
Right.
like everybody
Oh,
does, right?
totally.
So you get a bunch of millennials, you give them this mission, and all of a sudden we were doing projects around the world, locally and then nationally as well, just to better the standard of living
Okay.
for different communities while working with communities. And so that's where it came from. But when I really made that decision, I was actually in Kenya and I was beekeeping with African killer bees at night. I'm
What?
scared of bees. I'm not a beekeeper. Um, I was
How'd you
looking
sign
at
up? Well,
this.
how did you sign up? What were you like at the bar and somebody's like, hey, come work with these killer bees? You're like, okay, cool.
Basically, actually, yeah. The guy who was running it, he was a beekeeper here in Ontario, and my project had finished for the day, and he was like, "Do you want to learn how to beekeep?" And I was like, "Oh well,
All
why
right.
not?" And so I went, and yeah, I just remember like hearing the bees all around me and thinking to myself, "Wow, I never want like a really boring desk job. Like I want to do cool,
All right.
innovative, thrilling things, from
Mhm,
whatever
mhm.
career I end up in, and that kind of
Okay.
shaped what I ended up doing
Okay.
next.
Okay. Now, what about the drug aspect of cannabis and whatever alcohol, whatever other drugs you want to mention, psychedelics? Were you early on in high school? Were you like experiencing all of these things, or were you like a straight A student, or then in college you got wild, or like talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, I went to Catholic school, so
Oh,
I was
oh,
it was
okay,
pretty strict growing up. I didn't try any form of any drug or really alcohol until I was like 18, 19. Like I was
really,
very straight edge.
really,
I still
okay,
skip school all the time, but only because I was part of this other thing that I wanted to spend my time more on.
okay.
So, but I
So you
entering
didn't even try you
university
didn't even try cannabis until you were in high school, until you were
until
18. I mean,
yeah.
wow. All right, go ahead.
I
Sorry, I didn't mean to
know.
interrupt it. Go
No,
ahead.
no worries. It's always a surprise for everybody because of course of the area that I'm in now and my love for the culture in the
Yeah.
space. But
Uh,
yeah, I started university, and there were definitely, I like to say them like a year of experimenting with one specific, substance, just figuring out alcohol or figuring out
okay.
cannabis. Like,
Uh-huh.
how do I
Uh-huh.
like it? How do I not like it? Blah, blah, blah. A year over year. And I actually tried my first psilocybin trip on my 23rd birthday, also, kind of in that time frame.
So you were out
Um,
of college. So in college, you did the basics, right? You did all the basic stuff, whatever cannabis, alcohol, things like that. But you hadn't tried mushrooms in college.
nope.
Okay. All right. All right. So you're 23. Okay. Now 23. Now by this time, you're working. Don't you have like a regular job somewhere, or did you already start your own thing by then? What were you
I
doing at
had
23?
2 full-time jobs.
Okay.
So I started my first company when I was in my first year of university. That was Green Igloo, and it was building greenhouses in the most remote parts of Canada, including the Arctic, to help
Okay.
address food sovereignty and food security. And
Okay.
so I was doing that, and even though we had the funding to hire me full-time after I graduated, I still felt that I was too young to be a kind of solo entrepreneur, like making
Okay.
all the decisions all the time. And so my co-founder, he went full time, and I decided I would just do 2 jobs full time every day for the next several years.
What was that other job? What was the other job?
I had a few. I worked for the government and did entrepreneurship for the province.
Okay.
So getting entrepreneurial opportunities for citizens across the province. Then I worked for an accelerator for startups. And then
great. Okay.
I worked at a marketing company. That one was just, I tried to use my degree. I hated it.
So you were okay.
Yeah.
So
I left that one.
Green Igloo was up and running, and you were doing that, but it wasn't. You could have done it full time and paid yourself. You said you could
Yeah.
have, but okay. But you did these other jobs. All right. So you're busier than hell. Are you single at the time? Like, are you like, where are you?
Oh yeah, I did not date throughout the entire time. You can't date when you're running, like when you're, you have a full-time business, you have a full-time job. It's insane.
Okay. All right. And then you're in these, let me guess, you're working in these greenhouses, and like some plant expert person introduces you to mushrooms. Is that what happened?
I actually get that question a lot, but no, not at all.
Oh.
I was just really curious about it. I had heard a lot about different trips and how it had changed people's lives, and how, like, it's just this transformative experience one way or another. And so for my 23rd birthday, I don't know, I just decided this is the activity I want to do with friends. And it was all our first times. It was like 5 people trying mushrooms for the first time.
What? What are you guys like sitting around going, hey guys, I know we could, like, on my birthday, let's all get together and do, like, that's how it happened.
That's really how it happened. Yeah. Yeah. So
did you even know where to get them? Did you know anything?
I didn't.
About them?
No,
Did you know
I had to
take?
I had to ask like 3 different people. Then I searched on Reddit, like, what are you supposed to do the first time? And then, I mean, of course we made mistakes. One of my friends who's, like double or triple my height, he was just like, I feel nothing, and so I'm going to take more. The number one mistake that people make.
Yes.
He ended up doing, I think, like 3 or 4 grams the first time we ever did them.
Is that not good? I have no idea. Is that a bunch for your first time?
So for a first time, normally you do between either under a gram or like 1 gram to 2 grams, depending on how you react to, different, like cannabis or other types of substances, right?
Okay.
3 grams is like a regular trip for somebody that is, used to a psychedelic experience.
Okay.
When you get into like the 3 to 4, you're testing yourself, and then once you get to the 5, that's kind of like, a bit of a hero dose. It's a
hero dose. I like that.
You're gonna see some stuff. You're gonna hear some stuff.
Now, how do I know what a gram is? Like, what if I don't even know how to measure? Like, I'm looking at a little piece of mushroom. Like, how do I know what a gram is?
Honestly, it depends on where you're getting it. Okay. Most people, they'll give you a certain amount, and you can kind of tell based on the, what it comes in. Like, they'll label it for you. You can weigh it, right? You can get one of those little scales and weigh it yourself. But then it goes back to also what type of mushrooms you're getting. So back then, right? I just you can get me mushrooms. Okay, I'll take whatever you have, right? And then now it's like, oh, there's different strains, and different strains have different strengths, and they might give you a bit of a different effect. And there's so much more nuance to it once you get into the world of it. But at the beginning, you're kind of just whatever I get, and hope for the best.
It's so funny. You just reminded me what it was like when I was in college with weed, right? It's like you had weed or you didn't have weed. There was no, like, we didn't talk about like, well, what kind is that? What strain is that? How strong is that? There was none of those conversations. Like, oh, this guy has weed. Okay, let's smoke some. And I remember going into my first pot store in Colorado when it got legal, and they're like, it's talking to me about all these flavors and strains and everything. I'm like, huh? What? I don't, yeah, cool, I guess. So mushrooms are the same way.
That's exactly it.
All right. So you guys do all right. So how was that first dosing? Was it you were like, wow, this is changing my life, or what?
Yeah, no, it definitely did, in 3 different ways. The first being, at the time, the reason I also kind of wanted to do it, not only for the group setting, I thought it'd be a good time, but also at the time, I was considering leaving one of the jobs that I had, not Green Igloo, but the full-time gig. And
Okay.
I was like, should I not? I had just bought my first place on my own. And I was just like, I have a mortgage now. Do I leave the safety of this job? Do I go, what do I do? So and I came out of that trip understanding that I did want to leave and what I wanted to do next. So that was, really helpful.
So let me pause right there, because I think that's important right there. Let's take a deep breath right there. So what you're telling me is that first dosing truly helped you think through what you wanted to do with your life next. I mean, it really had that big of an effect on you.
It always does. I've only taken maybe 10 trips maximum throughout since then. Like I only do it maybe once or twice a year. And it's only usually when I have like a decision that I need to make, or I need guidance in something. And so, yeah, normally the decisions are pretty big. And I have like left jobs or chosen to do something else or worked on a relationship with, family or friends, like taken action after the fact.
Wow. Okay, that's good. All right, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but go ahead. But tell me, all right, so you came out of it. You're like, okay, I know what I want to do next. Go and walk us into kind of walk us into the rest of your career now, just a little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, the next thing that I kind of took from that trip specifically was, I loved being able to talk people through their trips, even though it was my first trip as well. I had friends who, one of them had said like something that was a little bit, like darker, and I could see on his face that like something's happening in your mind right now. And so, we kind of went on a walk and I talked him through it a little bit more, and, kind of got him more uplifted for the trip itself. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like those trips can really unlock a lot of things, whether happy or dark, like they can. And so I learned that about myself and how much I love guide work and being there for others. And again, it goes back to my whole like I love community stuff, but it also, I guess, kind of relates to my career now. Part of the reason of like, what I do right now in the mushroom space is the company I work for is very community based and very, how can I help you on a day-to-day basis, right? And all of these learnings about myself really came from the various trips that I've had, in particular the first.
All right, so can I ask you the guide thing? Is that necessary? Do you have to have a guide? Like, what if you're by yourself? Does it mean you're gonna trip out and freak out and see things crawling on the ceiling? And why do you have to have a guide?
You don't have to. That's the simple answer. You really don't. With that said, depending on people's comfort level with, trying new things, it's not even like new substances. It's, trying a new roller coaster by yourself. Do you like having somebody there with you? Do you not? It's just a comfort level thing. And so I personally enjoy guide work. I've actually never done a guided trip myself, but it's definitely on my to-do list. But you don't have to do it guided. I just enjoy being there in an informal manner for anybody who might want a little bit of support during their trip.
Okay, I keep trying to go back to the career, but then we go back to the mushrooms. That's okay. So it's fascinating, because it's a fascinating conversation. The guide, okay, does the guide keep you, what's the primary purpose? To keep you from over freaking out or possibly hurting yourself or falling down or walking down some stairs? Like what is the overall purpose of the guide?
I think it's important to clear up that when you try psilocybin on a regular dose of 1 gram, 2 gram, like we discussed previously, I feel like the media has hyper, sensationalized what the experience is. Most of the time, I like to describe it as you're seeing the world that has patterns through a frequency. So imagine like a radio frequency that kind of goes like this. Okay. That's how patterns will look. But people and other like things that are stagnant, they will not look any different. So you won't fall down the stairs. You won't, jump off anywhere. Like that won't happen. With that said, a guide, their purpose definitely differs depending on the trip and the person. So some people, they go to guides and they do guide work in terms of looking at trauma and trying to find a way to get through their trauma, right? And work through some of their issues. And usually these guides have a background in psychology, like they're trained for those type of situations. Versus other guides, right? They might actually just guide you in the sense of walking you through having a good trip, right? They might facilitate having an art station so you can draw and paint. They might curate your playlist. So like you're listening to some good Beatles while you're on your trip. They might, you know, say, let's go to this specific area because I know that it's beautiful during this time of year. Like it really changes. Guide work is very diverse. And that's why it means that you don't necessarily need a guide, right? It depends on what you prefer.
I got to be honest, the fact that the guides exist actually is what scare me from doing it. Like, so just for the audience, you know, I have no problem telling the audience, like I've done plenty of cannabis in my time, but I've never tried mushrooms. And I have friends that do mushrooms on a regular basis. In fact, we've done recruiting work for companies that are involved in psilocybin. But I've never done it. And I think one of the reasons I haven't is because I've heard about, I guess the two words that scare me are trip, as in I'm going on a trip, and guide. And I'm like, okay, well, man, I don't know if I want to do something that I actually have to have a guide for. Do I need a guide because I'm going to freak out that bad? And the guide's got it like that. That actually is what scares me. Maybe that's weird. I don't know. Maybe that's a weird thing to say, but that's how that terminology has affected me and why I haven't done it yet. Maybe I should stop worrying about that and just start with 1 gram and it'll be fine. Is that what I hear you saying?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And we can potentially cut this out later, but we are coming out with intention cards as a way to and like it's coming out in January or February. But
so you don't know, we don't know if you can actually announce it yet. We'll have to.
Exactly. We'll see if we can.
Let me. Okay. Just in case we got to cut it out, I'll make a note here, but go ahead.
We're coming out with intention cards. So for those people that don't necessarily have access to a guide or don't want one, you know, you can set your intention at the beginning of the day with these cards and then have kind of flashcards that remind you of what you set your intention to be. And that way it helps you in case, you know, it's kind of your, oh my gosh, maybe I'm going down this other path of thought process. Look at my flashcard. Oh yeah, I want to think about that. Immediate shift, right?
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. All right.
There's also for that type of situation, there's this organization that we're working with, Fireside Chat. I'm obsessed with them because it's kind of a hotline that you can call if you're freaking out. So you can like pre-program it in your phone in case like, you know, have it as your like top favorites like before you do a trip.
I love
and go and call them.
But see, now, I love what you just said. All right, flashcards and a hotline number. I think those are both great ideas. But you saying that actually scares me more. I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to take something where I need flashcards for. I mean, I don't know, man.
It totally depends on the person. I personally, so again, I've never done a guided trip. I generally am a optimistic type of person. I'm also a huge fan of horror movies. Like I personally am not like a horror person. Like I'm not going to get scared very easily. And so for me, it's very easy to like talk myself out of a negative thought, right? But if somebody, for example, is more prone to those and they're kind of scared, then yeah, get a guide or have the Fireside Chat kind of open, ready to go, right? It really depends on how well you know yourself.
Okay, now all right. I'm so glad you mentioned that. I don't mind confessing this as well, because my wife cannot get me to watch a scary movie. I mean, I just will not watch a scary movie because then I get scared later, you know. All right, all my friends that listen to this are going to make fun of me later, but it's okay. Anyway, my point is, that's another reason I haven't done the drug. That's another reason I haven't done it. It's because I'm like, man, I get scared easy. I don't want
to. Don't do it at night. That's my advice to you, because shadows look weird at night. And 2, again, you won't see things. You won't see like a thing that's not there. The closest thing I've gotten to that was I was at I took it on an island, and there was like the kids area. And you know, they have those like little cartoons and like their cutouts in areas. I saw this bear, and the bear's eyes looked super creepy to me. And I was like, nope, like can't look at that. Walked away, didn't look at it any further. But again, it's a pattern-based like frequency movement thing. So everything else will look normal unless it has a pattern in it. This is why people mostly do it in nature.
I see. Now I've been challenging you on all the stuff that I'm scared about. Tell me about all the positives. Like, let's talk about the benefits for a minute. We'll switch gears.
Yeah.
Eventually we'll get to Gwella, but talk to me about the positives. Okay. Let's say it doesn't scare me. Let's say I have a good trip and all that. Talk to me about the benefits. What is it going to do for me?
Well, for one, it might help you understand yourself a bit more.
Okay.
I think when you have a trip, and it's not just a me thought, it's kind of what the culture is you have ego death. So you don't think of yourself as, just the only person you think of. Like, it's not just me. All of a sudden, it's almost like you're separated from yourself, and you can have some clarity around me in relation potentially to the earth, me in relation to my loved ones, to my partner, to my friends, to my job. But it's almost separated, so you can see a little bit more clearly as to what does you as a person actually want and need. Right? So you might learn about yourself in a variety of different ways. With some, it can also help you heal. There's a reason that people might use this for related trauma or for their mental health. It might help you heal in terms of anything that you're facing on a day-to-day basis. Some people, I think it's the Johns Hopkins study, some people have said that it's the most transformative moment in their lives. It's helped, like,
I've heard
something
that.
Instead of taking an antidepressant every single day, they did one mushroom trip, and well, they're feeling happy on a daily basis. They're able to go back to that place that they felt at one time and pull from it as a source of strength and support. So changing your life in one way or another, and that's so transformation is one huge positive. I'll bucket all of it under there. And the other side is it can be just a really great time. Like, it can be, you get the giggles, at least I do. And you see the world a little differently. You get a little bit more creative. You want to sing and dance and paint and try things with almost like a childlike imagination. And that can be, when in our day-to-day life, that can be, spreadsheets and doing stuff that, like, errands and laundry and overwhelming stuff that is just day-to-day. This can really help break it up and give you that wonder state that is hard to get back to.
What about sleep? What about relaxation? Is it not really for that? I mean, like, for example, sometimes I'll do some indica cannabis to sleep better at night. Is it for that or not really?
I mean, you'll feel, I personally, so there's a variety of different psychedelics as well, right? So personally for me, with mushrooms specifically, I feel very tired at the end of my trip. I'm like, okay, I am ready to go to bed. Like, and I will sleep very soundly. But for example, with things like, did we cut out? There we go.
No.
Something like LSD, right? I personally feel that at the end of it, I get this, like, burst of energy. And I'm like, let's do more stuff. Like, let's, do more. Not LSD, but other things. So I don't know if it's necessarily, not all psychedelics are for sleep. Relaxation, absolutely. My first trip on LSD was actually with my best friend on that island with the weird bear. And we ended up just laying on the beach for hours, just sun tanning, like, enjoying the weather, completely relaxed, as if I went to acupuncture like 20 minutes before. Like, I was just in a sense of bliss. So you can absolutely use it for relaxation.
Okay, now how about this? Talk to me about the legalities of this. Like, is it legal? Where do I get it? How do I buy it? What do I do? I live in the U.S. What do I do? Just treat me like I know nothing. What do I do if I want to go down and get 2 grams of mushrooms and try it? What do I do? Where do I go?
Well, it is still legal across the US, so that would be very tough for me to.
Illegal across the US still. Okay.
But it is decriminalized in a few, I think 5 or 6 states. I think 6 states as of this morning. I put it on my Instagram. And so what that means is that while you can't necessarily go to a store and, like, pick up 2 grams of, a specific type of mushroom strain, you can, however, like, if you are able to procure it, if you are found with it in those states, you won't be, for example, charged, right? Again, I'm not in the States, so I don't know on the practice of will they not, actualize that decriminalization. Like, I don't know how that will work.
Is Colorado one of those? Is Colorado one of these?
Denver, yeah.
Oh, just Denver.
Just Denver, from my
just
understanding.
Denver.
Denver and Oakland. I think,
Oh.
but I don't know if
So
Oakland
I
is
can't.
in
So
Florida.
you can't go to the mountains with it. You got to be inside Denver city limits.
That I would have to double check on. I am
Okay.
not a U.S. resident, so
All right. Well, but how do I get it though? What do I got to call Johnny down the street and like secretly knock on the door with the secret code and get in and buy it, or what do I got to do?
so from what I've heard, that is one way. You know a guy who knows a guy who knows a girl who knows, there's definitely that way. But from what I've heard, other companies that are kind of operating in the more gray market, so they are essentially selling under the table. What they've started doing is, have this, like, I'm trying to grab something. There we go.
Yeah.
Grab this block of wood for $100, and for free, I'm gonna give you this baggie of shrimps. So I'm not selling it to you because that's illegal, but I'm giving it to you for free, and you're buying this other thing.
I see. Can you do that
People
at
are finding
can you
loopholes.
do that at a cannabis store right now in Colorado? Probably not. Probably not.
In a cannabis store in
Yeah, if you went to
Colorado?
like if you went to a dispensary in Colorado, can you do that with mushrooms or no?
It depends if they're offering it.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Right?
I don't know the rules on it. I probably should. Okay. Why can't I just go up to the mountains and pick a mushroom in the forest and use those? What is that not the same?
So this is one of my favorite things. So there is a whole culture of people who grow their own, right? Or they pick
Okay.
them up from the mountains, like
Okay.
that exists.
All right.
And so my thing, because it's still illegal technically, so I'm like, if I'm growing it in my backyard, like, is there going to be some sort of enforcement that's going to come in and be like,
Right.
hey, let me check out your backyard? That's just, it seems odd.
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of one of those, your personal safety, comfort, what the risk level do you want to take, right?
Okay.
And everybody's differs. One quick thing though, I think that is important to mention that I think everybody would find fascinating is that a lot of people grow mushrooms out of the Uncle Ben's rice. Like, it's like a whole culture phenomenon, which I
Really
learned about earlier this year. And I was like, I'm sorry. What?
interesting.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a part of the subculture.
Okay. Interesting. But what about the mountain mushrooms? I probably shouldn't eat those, right? Some of them could kill me. I don't know. I don't know anything about it.
Some of them could kill you. Absolutely. You should pick up a mushroom book and figure out how to tell the difference between them.
Can
Or
some
watch,
of them in the can some of them in the mountains get you high?
possibly. There's over, I think, 4,000 or 5,000 strains of mushrooms, not just psychedelic, but like just
5,000.
mushrooms.
Jesus Christ.
So yes, some of them may kill you.
I know there's psilocybin people that are going to be listening to this episode going, God, he's just totally ignorant to the whole thing. Because I got a friend, Dale Jolly, he's my buddy of mine. He's in the space, and he'll probably listen to this and be like, holy shit, bro, you need to educate yourself more. Thank you for all of that. Before we do a Gwella overview, I want to ask you two questions about drugs in general. Should drugs be illegal across the board? Would you, if you had the power across planet Earth to decriminalize all drugs, would you do it?
It's a great question. And my answer would probably be yes. With that said, I think if you are going to legalize all drugs, then you absolutely need to have support systems for said substances. There's my best friend, she actually works in drugs, but decriminalizing drugs and supporting people who are facing addiction and all of these types of situations, people who are facing homelessness as a result of their addictions. And a lot of what we talk about is the fact that if you can't just restrict it. People are still going to access drugs, but the drugs that they're accessing are going to be of lesser quality because at the end of the day, there's no rigid way to test their drugs that they're getting, right? And so if you're at least legalizing it, one, you're keeping your community consumption safer. And two, when you're able to discuss it and use it in plain sight, one, you can create places to do that in a safer environment. You can use tools that have been sterilized. You can provide support systems because you understand which people are on which types of drugs and support them in a way that allows them to be a contributing member to society, right? By legalizing drugs, you can only do good. And so that's my stance on it. But again, support systems are required.
So, It's interesting. I grew up in a very conservative, religious atmosphere in Oklahoma, right? And even still, my family and my mom, they're all totally against any drug, right? Um, but I tell you, as I've gotten older and I've lived around the country, and I've lived in Colorado for 16 years, I really just, I know this may make a lot of people mad, but I just think the war on drugs is it's just like people are going to do what they're going to do, and they're going to get it one way or another. And so I kind of, these days, as I get older and a little more relaxed, my general attitude is, look, man, if you want to like shoot heroin up your arm and spin around in your front yard until you fall down, like, I really don't care. Like whatever floats your boat. Like, I really don't care. So generally I'm leaning more and more and more towards, decriminalizing drugs. Like you said, the right support systems, protection for minors on certain things, I think, and things like that. But trying to stop people from doing things is a waste of time. Meanwhile, opioids, sugar, and caffeine, and all these other drugs across the planet. I mean, the reality is sugar and caffeine are the two most addictive, most used drugs on planet Earth, and nobody cares.
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way. And also that there's a spectrum to drug usage, right? Like when people think of, at least I used to, I used to think that, when I thought of a heroin user, I would think somebody who was spinning out and was likely experiencing homelessness as a result of addiction.
Yeah.
And I had this preconceived notion of what these people
Right.
were and who they were.
Right.
And then getting more into the literature and studies and data, I was like, some people are addicted to heroin are, professors at universities, but they use it on the down low, right? Like they it's not this, like, it doesn't take over their life, but they're still addicted. The same way that you have functioning alcoholics, like there's a spectrum. And so, I just think overall support is absolutely needed across the board, regardless of what drug it is, whether it's sugar or heroin, support.
Agreed. Here's another question for you. What about this? Again, you have the power on planet Earth. What would you do with this one? If you could release every person in jail for a cannabis crime, would you?
Oh my God, yes. That's not even a question. Absolutely. That is insane to me. When cannabis was legalized in Canada, I was part of the celebrations. It was insane to me that it could be illegal. Well, alcohol that can have so many more worse causes both on your health, on your relationships, on your communities, is completely legal, sold in our grocery stores. And then you had cannabis that was just like this down low, can't do it, can't talk about it thing. It was just like the worst that will happen is you get a little hungry. Like, it just, I mean, of course, people can create dependencies, like
people can have dependencies on everything.
Yeah, exactly. So no, that is an absolute yes.
I think it really is sad. And what's another word I want to use? Just really, it's terrible that people in states right now, today, yesterday, are being arrested for cannabis and put in jail. I mean, right now in Texas, yesterday in Texas, I'm sure there were hundreds of people arrested for miscellaneous bullshit cannabis things. And there's people getting put in jail for, having a bag of weed in Texas and some of these other states. I just like, that's terrible. I mean, you're telling me that you can drive 50 miles across the border in Colorado and do whatever you want, and then you go 50 miles in the other direction on planet Earth and they're going to put you in jail? Like that is just, I have a really hard time wrapping my brain around why we're doing that. I think that somebody's got to fix that soon.
I think the word you're looking for is despicable.
Despicable's good.
I agree with you. It's absolutely insanity to me. And to me personally, it's like, do you have too much time on your hands? Like, why are you focusing on these things instead of that type of search and enforcement. Why don't we use that time and capital and use it into supporting our communities, looking at ways to improve sustainably, work with our communities to find different ways to uplift our communities, right?
Good.
It's
Yes.
just, yeah.
It's interesting. I'll finish that topic off with, I had to drive to Oklahoma for a funeral recently where my family lives. And, I get down there, I'm checking into the hotel and get my stuff out of my car or whatever. And I realized like, I got cannabis in the Jeep, right? It's in my glove box. I got it around a little bit, here and there. And I didn't even think about it, right? Like it never even crossed my mind to like, ooh, let me make sure I get all the cannabis out before I drive to an illegal state. Like I never even thought about that. And then I get down there and I'm like, oh shit. Okay. Was this supposed to be in here? Can I be arrested? I don't know. And yeah, it's terrible. We gotta fix that. Okay. I want to move. So tell me about Gwella, how you got in it, and then give us the overview of Gwella. Go for it.
For sure. So last summer, pandemic is raging. I felt that where my career was at, I was working on Green Igloo full time, and I finally had just one full-time job. And I realized I started it when I was like a kid, right? Like I started it, and I never thought it would become this full-blown business with like employees and operations across the nation. And I never dreamt that big for it. And my life was now all in this space and in greenhouses and these very important topics that are essential to our communities, food sovereignty, food security, and indigenous communities. And I realized that, I had done this for so long, basically 8 years at that point. And I asked myself, did I want to continue to have my career there? Right. And I had never really questioned that. It was just something I did. It was who I was. And actually on a psilocybin trip, I asked myself that question. That was my intention. I was like, is this right for me? Is this the right path? And what I came out with was, it wasn't. It was no longer my passion. It had been my passion when I was 19. And so I started, I wasn't looking for any job. I was more so curious about the psilocybin space because I was such an advocate for it on the down low at the time. I was just such a fan. And I spoke to a bunch of people in the space, got a few job offers here and there, but nothing really aligned with who I was, right? A lot of companies in the space are very like dollar size in their eyes. Like, this is a gold rush, it's going to be legalized in the next few years. Let's, do all these things for it. And that's not who I am. And so I spoke to the Gwella team, who was my co-founder at the time. It was basically like 2-3 guys, and they aligned. They everything that came out of Pete's mouth, I was like, oh my God, like, yes, like that's who I am. That's what I believe in. These are my values. And so I told him straight up, I was like, look, I think you need some operations on your team. I think you need somebody to kind of lead that day-to-day execution. And I'm that person. Like, I know myself. I know I can do it.
Had they already started the company, or they were thinking about forming it and then you formed it with them and became a co-founder?
A bit of the latter. They registered the name a year prior, and they were starting their first raise at the time.
Okay.
So no product yet, nothing built out yet.
I see.
And so, yeah, they were keen. And so I joined as a co-founder. And we started working together on making Gwella a reality. And so for everybody listening, Gwella is a mushroom company. And so what that means is, while we are all lovers of psychedelics, of course they are illegal, and we are not a gray market operator. And so we are working in the functional mushroom space until legalization does occur. And we come out with mushroom-based products, content, and tools. So the first product that we have mimics a microdose of psilocybin, which we didn't talk about, but basically, it looks like this. I don't know if your viewers will see this, but that's it.
Okay.
They're super cute packaging, but they're little gummies that give you the same effect that a psilocybin microdose would. So that uplift in mood.
But what's in it? But hold on. What's in it? What do you mean? So what do you mean? What does that mean?
There's ingredients that are stack, which is functional mushrooms, nootropics, other good types of ingredients. I can read it off for you if you'd like.
But but mushrooms aren't in it. Mushrooms aren't in it.
Not psilocybin. There's other mushrooms. Okay. There's other mushrooms that build up our functional stack. That, again, those mushrooms have the properties that are able to mimic the same type of effect that a microdose of psilocybin does.
Hold on.
Without any
Okay.
illegal drugs.
Okay. Now I want to make sure I stop right here because I don't want to get confused. Are you telling me that you've created something that has mushrooms in it, but not psilocybin that will still get me high? Is that accurate?
No, sorry, that's confusing. Okay, you will. It's a mushroom-based product, not illegal mushrooms. So functional mushrooms, which are things like reishi or chaga, or the adaptogenic type of mushrooms that are available at your like local health food store. Right?
I see.
Like lion's mane.
Okay.
And then stacked with other types of nootropics to essentially create a blend that mimics the effects of a psilocybin microdose, but without any of the illegal ingredients. That way you won't get in trouble for buying it. Like,
but when you say mimics effects, mimics all the effects except for being high.
So in a microdose of psilocybin, you won't get high. You won't see stuff. You won't.
Okay.
Like that. So that's what I mean. Like regardless if you're doing a microdose of psilocybin, you shouldn't be getting high. People do it for like work, so they should not be high.
Whoa. Now I understand. Thank you for educating this ignorant guy on this. Okay, now I got it. Okay. All right, cool. So you're a product company and you're developing some products that don't have a psilocybin in them yet because it's not legal yet, but in the background, are you preparing and working on all the products that do have a psilocybin? So as soon as it becomes legal, boom, you hit the market?
That is the plan, yes. We do plan to eventually get into the space, but of course, until then, we are not. And so our product essentially right now just kind of mimics the effects. And I mean, again, the kind of the mood, energy, cognition, and people use it whether they're trying to, I find there's two buckets of people that use it. Either one, they can't access psilocybin microdosing, and so they use our product as like a one-for-one replacement. Or other people who just don't care about psilocybin in any way, shape, or form, but they use our product as almost like a replacement or an aid to coffee. So they have their coffee in the morning, they'll have a mojo in the afternoon, or they'll just have 2 mojos in the morning and have no coffee whatsoever.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So
but you're going okay. But you're going to be a product company. That's their primary goal. Is a CPG company for wholesale, retail, both? Both.
Yes, we are a CPG company, wholesale and retail.
Okay. And by the way, for the listeners, it's gwellamushrooms.com, right? Gwellamushrooms.com. Now you're tripping me out with this website, with the main page, with the way the leaves are moving and everything. It's making me, I feel like I'm high right now. No, I'm just playing. I like it though. Okay. Can you legally do R&D and prepare psilocybin products in a lab somewhere, even though you're not selling it? Can you like prepare this stuff? How does that work?
Yeah. So also just a quick note, it's also, so Gwella is our main parent company, but Mojo is mojo.shop. That's the site. But with that said, in terms of R&D, there is licensing now available, at least in Canada, and I believe in the US as well, for companies to apply to do research and development with the scheduled substances that is known as psilocybin, as well as other different types of psychedelic properties.
Okay.
So
all right,
that does exist, and for us, we're working with partners to be able to do that research, as we don't have the license yet ourselves. But that's not to say that we won't. So we're kind of in the process.
You're in the process. Are you in a series? Do you want to mention any cash raise? Are you looking for investors? Are you guys raising cash right now? Are you in Series A? Talk to me about cash.
Yeah, so we did a few seed rounds. Those were successful, and we raised more than we were oversubscribed, which was amazing for us.
Great.
We were incredibly proud.
Okay.
But we are going to be doing a Series A later on in 2022. If anybody is interested in kind of following that story, we have our investor site, which is meetgwella.com.
Meetgwella.com, meetgwella.com for investors. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we'll be posting a lot of our story and what is going to be happening around there.
Okay, very good. Now, so right now you're quote burning cash that you raised because you don't have any revenue. Are you getting paid? Are you doing this for free, or are they paying you?
First of all, we are making money. We're live with Mojo across the states.
So you are post revenue. Okay. Oh, whoa. Sorry. All right. So you are. How do I buy that product? What site do I? Yeah.
Mojo.shop, and also We're going to be on Amazon in January, as well as we're
Ooh.
in store in Miami, New York, and Oklahoma, since you visit
Oh.
Oklahoma. Yeah, we're there in friendly market.
What a great way to drive some revenue early on before psilocybin becomes legal. Good idea. Ooh, good move. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, good move. Was that your idea? That's a good one.
Yeah, it was a team effort. And again, like we're big fans of our own product.
And your investors love the fact that you got some revenue coming in now too. So you're not just burning straight cash. So when you met these guys, your other co-founders, guys, girls, whatever, were you like, hey, listen, you guys got great idea. You're super creative. You know the product, but I'm an operations expert. I'm going to organize you. I'm going to make sure that the train's on time, and together we can do this. Is that how it went down?
I actually looked through one of our early decks and I pointed out spelling mistakes and said that they needed somebody organized enough to be able to find those. And that's how I joined. It was a good fit. They are, I'm very much like day-to-day execution, like make sure the train's running on time. And one of my co-founders, Pete, he's the big ideas, like where are we going to be in 10 years, 5 years, like let's get to X amount of revenue next year, like let's do all these big things. And I'm like, okay, how are we going to do that on a daily basis? And it's a really good partnership.
That's a wonderful thing, by the way. And just, for the listeners, for the entrepreneurial listeners, if you have on the co-founding team, if you have a creative strategy person along with a operational tactical person that can actually get the shit done, that really just makes up a great team, right? Okay, very good. Anything else you want to say about Gwella? Any other websites, any other thing that we need to know about Gwella?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that right now in the psychedelic space, in the mushroom space, you are seeing a boom of companies and products and content and tools. And everybody I find is doing it two ways. It's either, super hyper medicalized, like we're going to have you do trips in a medical setting, or recreational, like go to a cottage with your friends or go to a party. And, there's those two kind of spaces. And where Gwella is, we're right in the middle. And that's kind of how we have branded ourselves. We're kind of the day-to-day wellness mushroom company. Our entire purpose is to do day-to-day stuff, right? And so everything that we come out with is with that goal. And again, very community-based, very community-focused. How can we both uplift ourselves, our communities, and our consumers?
I have one last question for you. No, we're out of time here. By the way, I'm going to send you my address so that you can send me some samples of the super secret psilocybin product you're working on in the background in the lab. And if you'd like last question, Stefany. And by the way, really, really cool story. Appreciate you being on the show and sharing your personal journey and telling us about Gwella. I have one last question for you. What is if you had to define your core purpose in life and put that into a sentence, what does that sound like for you?
That's a great question. And I've asked myself that many times. I think what that sentence would come down to is something along the lines of trying to make a positive impact in the lives of people around me and the communities that I frequent, local, all the time.
Very good. Stefany, thank you so much. Appreciate you being on the show and sharing your story.
Thank you so much.